All right, everybody, we're glad to see such a good turnout tonight. We have a great crowd, so hopefully we'll see you at the rest of the meetings. And we have Judy back with us tonight. Judith, how are you?
I'm here.
Okay.
First time.
Anyway, we have Jeff Bohr tonight, who's going to cover Mavericks. Most of you know Jeff, some of you don't. He's the local Naples Mac expert. And he has his own business. Did you bring some cards?
Yeah, they're on the table in the
Okay,
back. So
there's some Jeff's cards in the back. Okay, so we're all set?
Is your camera on, George?
Mavericks, yeah, I think so.
Well, hello everyone. Again, my name is Jeff Bohr, and what we'll be discussing this evening is Apple's newest operating system for the Apple hardware, the computer line. As you know, they came out with iOS 7 a few months ago, or maybe just a few weeks ago. It seems like months for the Apple portable devices, the iOS devices. They've carried over a lot of those features that you've been seeing on the portables into Mavericks. This computer is running Mavericks, so what I'll be doing is I'll be showing you a slideshow with some of the features that are available in Mavericks, and then as well as we can jump over to the computer and you can see on the screen how those features are accessed, enabled, or disabled, depending on how you'd like to use them. So we'll cover that. If you have any questions during, feel free to ask away. If I don't know the answer, I will find out and let you know through the user group discussion board or a personal email.
Jeff, question.
Yes.
Will you have a handout that you ship to us?
I'll send you a PDF this evening that you can post.
Okay. His slideshow will be posted on the club website sometime this week.
Yeah, I'll get that this evening. So, okay, about me, I started my company called Naples Mac Help in 2004. I'm an Apple Certified Support Professional, so I take classes and exams from Apple on a usually about every 9 or 10 months whenever they come out with a new operating system. So the courseware for 10.9 has not even been set yet, so the curriculum is not available. But as soon as that is, I'll be taking those classes and get my certification for software support for 10.9. And I've been using Apple computers since college, 27 years. I've never owned a PC, so this has been my my computer of choice and the devices. So the first thing I'll talk about is one of the features that you can probably notice in iOS 7 is what is the automatic app updates. So on your iPad or your iPhone, you're now able, in the settings, to turn on an update so that you don't see that little, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 appear on the app icon that tells you there are 4, 5, 6, or 7 updates to be available. There's a feature that's really convenient in Mavericks where you can also turn on automatic updates. So when you go to System Preferences, and in the System Preferences panel, there is an App Store icon now. So there's an App Store System Preference. In that, you can check the boxes as you see here that say automatically check for updates, download newly available updates in the background, install app updates, install system files and security updates, and automatically download apps purchased on other Macs. So if you have a laptop and you have a iMac in your office, or maybe you have a Mac Mini, and you downloaded the new version of Pages on that, you might also want the new version of Pages on your other machine. If you have that last box checked, then when you download an app, it will show up on your other devices that are OS 9 compatible. And then it will also tell you at the bottom, when did it last check if there were updates available. And you will be able to see the updates that have been installed through the App Store menu. So when you're actually in the App Store, that's when you'll be able to look at the recent updates and such. But in the System Preferences menu, which you see here, you'll only see how you control how that App Store manages the updates.
Do you recommend this?
There are two schools of thought. I mean, I like it. There's another school of thought where there's a lot of people, and this is kind of a personal preference, that don't like to get the first version of everything. And they say, oh, well, I'm not going to update this yet because I want to see how it works out. Being in this is my business, I take everything, and then if there are bugs, I try to work through them and figure it out. So depending on your personal comfort level with potential issues. It's the same way with automatic updates on your iOS device. You know, some people don't like those because once in a while an update will come down that has a few bugs in it. Personally, that doesn't bother me that much because I feel it's part of the program. You know, if I'm signed up to do this, I'll take that. And but if that's a comfort level. So if you're not up for that kind of a game of chance, it's not really like Russian roulette. It's more like, you know, grabbing a hot pan on the stove. You might get burned and you might not. But so that would be a personal preference. I personally check everything, just so I don't have to look at those annoying little numbers that say 1, 5, 6, 7, or 12 updates that are available. Check.
If you're doing this in the background and you're not logged on as administrator, does it still do it without you having to give the administrator password?
Well, the updates will download if the administrator's logged in, I know, but I don't know if the administrator's not logged in. I would think that if the administrator was not logged in, but a standard user was logged in, this would be on hold until the admin is logged in again.
Okay.
I recently got an update for a program which wasn't a Mac program, but it will go, obviously it does that as well, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and especially the last part about download apps purchased on other Macs. You might download maybe a little photo editing app for, you know, $4 or $5 for your laptop, and then that'll also be on your iMac at your office or home if that is that last button is checked. So this will do updates. Now there will be some updates where it won't restart your computer. Once in a while you'll get the update where it says click here to restart your computer. This won't restart the computer for you, but it will download it and will get it ready, and you'll just see a little window that will then say updates have been downloaded, click here to restart and install. So that process is not automated yet. That's another safety check that you have that feature. Another option that we'll check in a moment is what's called install updates later. So this corner that you see here is the top right corner of the App Store menu. So when you're in the App Store, you'll occasionally see a list of updates that say, you'll see a little number on the icon for the App Store. And you'll open the App Store and you'll say, okay, there are 3 updates available. Well, now when you go to the arrow here, let me show you what this looks like. So this is the App Store window. I'll click on Updates in the top right corner, and you'll see that there are 3 updates available for the computer. The software update, 1Password. So what I can do is typically you might click Update All here, or individually, but I can also say, try tonight, remind me tomorrow about these updates. So you have these different choices now of updates. Maybe you're working on a big project, you don't want to have to restart the computer, and that may be required. Well, instead of having the window that keeps popping up saying you must restart your computer now, you could say remind me later, in an hour or a later time. So that's a new option available in the App Store. Another app that just came out for Mavericks is iBooks. So if you've ever used the iBooks app on one of your iOS devices, which is very similar to the Kindle app, if you had a Kindle, you might be comfortable with the Kindle app. But Apple's iBooks is available for Mavericks. Some of the things you can do on the portable iOS devices in iBooks, you can also do in Mavericks, such as notes. So one of the abilities is you can add a note, and I'll demonstrate that, because that's something else that's kind of new to the whole book process is new on the device. So if here's a book, and if you highlight a section, there's a button here that says add a note. So if you wanted to make a note, you could type in read this over.
Where was the note? It's
After you select text. So if I'll start with few scientists, I'll select that text. Then the menu will pop up that says, have a note, you have different color highlights. Another trick is if you go to a different page, if you want to, like say I pick the color purple or whatever color, lavender maybe, I don't know, but say I pick that and that's the highlight color I like. If I go 2 pages down and click, it defaults to the default highlight, whichever your operating system, in system preferences, under general, you have a default highlight color, which is maybe yellow or blue. A trick is if you hold the command key when you highlight, it will highlight using the last color. That's not very clear, but you can see here the color is purple.
Oh, yeah.
I chose purple on the 3 pages prior to this when I highlighted. So by default, if I just start highlighting another selection somewhere else in the book, it's going to default to my primary highlight color, which in this case is blue. However, if you hold the command key before you select, it will then select in the color that you chose again. Another thing you can do that you cannot do on the iOS devices in Mavericks is have more than one book open at a time.
Jeff, does the iOS, does the iBooks sync to iBooks on the phone?
That is a good question that I haven't tested yet. Let's test it real quick, because that is everything else syncs. I would think that might. Another thing we can do that I'll show you is open multiple books at a time. So on your iOS device, you might notice there's it's a small screen, even if it's an iPad. You can only flip through one book at a time. You have to go back to your library and open another book and jump back and forth. However, in iBooks here, if you go to your library, so I've got the whole, I've got a book called Whole Foods up here. If I go to Command L, that'll take me back to my library, and I can also open Food Rules. So you see I have 2 books open, one called Whole, and one called Food Rules here. So I could open as many books really as you would want in the background and jump between books. That might help if you were doing some kind of project and you were using these as reference materials and making notes. You could access more than one book at a time. Now let me check and see if
You
the...
can't do that on the iPad, you said?
You can't, no, because you can't have...
Right.
You can only have one book on the screen of the iPad and the iPhone. And the question was, do your notes and such sync? And they do. So these are the purple highlights that I just made on the book in iBooks on the computer, and it did sync to my iPhone. So the notes and highlights will sync across devices, which is pretty handy.
Great, thanks, Jeff.
So the viewing multiple books at a time is another option as well. Now another thing we have now available is maps. So if you haven't installed Mavericks yet, and you're used to using maps on your portable device, the Apple Maps, they spent a lot of money on the research and development. So their maps, in the beginning, you heard a lot about bugs and people were driving into lakes supposedly and such. Well, they've got a lot of that worked out. They still don't have the flyovers like in Naples, but in the bigger cities they have nice views of, it looks like, Superman flying through the streets and such. So they're expanding their coverage, they're doing a lot of research, they're doing a lot of stuff to improve the maps. So some of the things you can do in the maps, just like you have on your iOS device, you have different views. You have a standard view, which is kind of like the pastel colored map with the street names and such on it. You have a hybrid view, which kind of shows the map, the geography overlaid with the street names and such. And then you have a satellite view, which really shows the detail. So I'll show you how you can scroll through those as well. So if you open Maps, Maps is a little icon that looks like a map. And if I go to, let's see how good the Wi-Fi signal is here, if it can identify where we are. Well, it didn't find me yet, but you'll see here's a standard view, which is kind of like a map that you might pull out of your glove box and open up. So that will show that. A hybrid view kind of shows the street names overlaid on top of the satellite view. There's 41, and here's Central Avenue. So we're right along here. And then the satellite view takes away the street names and kind of just shows you the satellite view. Indeed. So now another neat thing you can do when you're in the map, let's say, well, you can obviously, there's a directions tab here, so you can say start at a certain location and end at a certain location, just like you could on the phone. But one neat thing is, you can actually click this little sharing arrow. So that's the universal share symbol across the iOS devices now. So this little symbol here with the arrow jumping out of the box, if you click that, I could research a map on my computer. Any iOS devices that you have that are synced with your iCloud account will then show up under that share menu. So you could research a map on your big computer, click this button, and it will send a link to that map to my iPhone. And then I could open it up there and retrieve the directions rather than having to look at them and research a route on a small screen. So through the share menu, you can also email, send it to a text, send a map to Facebook or Twitter if you have those accounts enabled, or add a bookmark. Now over here, there's a bookmarks menu. The bookmarks that show up, not only do you see bookmarks that you've made on your devices, so if you have a 3G-enabled iPad or an iPhone and you've created bookmarks on those sync via the iCloud settings and will show up here, as well as all your contacts from iCloud will be available for you to look in a map. So you can click on a person in your address book and it will show you where they are. You can then there's another feature, so that will let you give the same share menu where I can send it to my iPhone or I can send it to myself in an email. Now you'll notice here it's grayed out. There's a button that says Add to Contacts. Does everyone see that down at the bottom left? It's kind of hovering over it. Now what you can do is if you take a Command-Shift-D will drop a pin. So do you see I dropped the pin here? And I can drag that to a certain address at 56-2000. That's not right. Amiens Trail. So if I take the pin and move it somewhere, what I'm allowed to do is there at 1609 Vanderbilt Beach Road, if I click the information, I'm allowed to add a bookmark or add it to a contact, but it won't let me add it to an existing contact. It will only right now put you up with an address, and it says dropped pin, and it gives you the address. So there's no option like in other apps on the phone and such, where you can say, create a new contact or add to an existing contact. You'll get that option a lot with addresses and phone numbers that you might add via the address book or Safari. But the add a contact through Maps on Mavericks, as of this moment, will only let you create a brand new contact and not attach an address from a dropped pin to a contact that already exists in your address book. Don, you have a question?
Yeah, in the upper left, underneath the red and yellow circles, we're pushing on that little icon on the left, which on the phone shows where you are, but it's not working here. Is that because we're not receiving a GPS?
Well, it's that usually this will try to affect you during a Wi-Fi signal, because I know when I'm at home and I've done this, it gets within a block.
Right.
So it could be the Wi-Fi signal here. If it's shielded or something, and it's I don't know how it's set up, but that's probably due to the Wi-Fi signal that we're not seeing any. It's not zeroing in on us when we click that, because that icon is typically will kind of focus in on you where you are on the map at that point. But since it's not working, I think it's part of the Wi-Fi
Thank
here.
you. My other question is, how are you zooming? It looks like you're not using two hands.
You can zoom just like you would on any other device with two fingers.
Oh,
So if you pinch in and out, you can zoom around. The second icon here next to the underneath the green dot, that toggles on the 3D view. So if you kind of want to see a little flyby or something, you can. But you control on a trackpad anyway. On a mouse, it would be a little more difficult. But if you have a trackpad connected via Bluetooth to your computer or a trackpad on your laptop, obviously, you can pinch in and pinch out and kind of do little flyovers when you're in that 3D view. And when you turn off the 3D view, it just goes to a straight overhead bird's eye view. So there's the satellite again, and you kind of see the difference of detail between the hybrid, where it fills in the street names, and then the standard map, which is kind of just the plain Graham McNally style. So again, when you add a map to a contact, I put a note there that it's only for new contacts as of today when I tested this. This is probably something I would guess that there will be a small system update soon that will give you the ability to add a dropped pin to an existing contact, which might be handy if you have a party invitation and you're sitting at your computer typing into your calendar and there's a new address. Adding it to an existing contact might be easier. Now, using the calendar, there's a couple of neat things that are available in the calendar. One is autocomplete an address. For a long time, you've had, under an event title, and I'll show you how this works, there's been a box that says location, where you can type in an address or an event manually. So if I go to the calendar here, and I'll go to next week, and I'll go to noon on Saturday. And I'm going to create a new event. So here's Mom's birthday. Now when I go to this add location spot, right below the birthday, if I start typing in, it'll ask you if you want to access your contacts the first time. That's the first time I've done on this laptop. So this is my mother-in-law's birthday. So I'm going to start typing in her name. And if I put in the last name, you'll see this little wheel is spinning. It's thinking. It's saying, who do I want to add here for my address book? And then I'll find, there's Mom Porter's home, and it automatically fills in on my calendar a map. And if you'll notice, below the map, it even shows the weather for Saturday the 30th, the high and low. So that is a neat feature. So I've got my mother-in-law's birthday, I've got her address there, I've got the time, I've got a map, and I know what the weather's going to be. So that's really nifty. And then the information will then sync to your other devices. So when you pick up your iPhone or your iPad and look at that date on the calendar, it's going to have all the same information that you see here. I know it'll show the map. I don't think it shows the weather yet on the iOS devices.
Can you check off whether you like it or not?
And that's probably not a good feature to have, especially if it's going to show up on your devices and they like to play with your phone. So, but that's an option. And even when you go into another, and see some of these, since this is a subscribed calendar to the Mug Group meetings, the address is in there. But since I think maybe because there's not a zip code formatted, it doesn't show us the weather for that particular thing. Because typically when you find someone in your address book, you're going to have all the address information. This just kind of says Central Avenue, so it probably can't zero in on the weather.
Jeff, I noticed you have different colors. One thing I missed, I was PC and I converted to Mac, was being able to color code appointments on my calendar. Like I would put, haircuts in this color and appointments in another color and ongoing things in another color. So, and have they made any changes to that in Mavericks?
Well, yeah, what you can do is on any calendar, you can get info. So I'm on my medical calendar, and then from there I can change the color in a pop-up menu.
Okay, you can't do that before Mavericks.
Yes,
You can do that. You can do that
Yes, you
for
can.
years.
I
Yeah.
can't find it.
So if you get info on a calendar, either through the edit menu, get info,
Huh?
or if you right-click or tap with two fingers on it and say get info, then in the box there you'll be able to pick a color and you can pick a custom color. And that's been available in the operating system for as long as I can remember. So if you have an issue, probably go to edit and then get info, and you can certainly do it from that window.
Okay.
But then that way the events that you have on your calendar are color coded. So when you go to the month, you can kind of see.
But isn't it the calendar itself, the particular calendar is color coded?
It's the calendar. Like if you have a hair calendar, you cannot. The custom events, you couldn't say. You have a calendar over here. I have my business calendar, a home calendar, a medical, of birthdays, etc. So those calendars on the left are all different colors. You have to create a calendar for hair appointments or something to have it always be green.
Okay.
But you cannot.
Okay.
The colors are tied to specific calendars: home, work, school, play.
That I found, but I didn't realize we have so many. So okay.
Yeah, and you can have as many calendars as you like. If you're sharing calendars, it gets a little more confusing. I think the more you have, from my experience, what I've seen, where if I have this many calendars and all of a sudden I want to share them with my wife and she has that many calendars, you end up with 30 calendars and it gets hectic. And this is kind of hectic as it is, so. But another thing that you can do with calendars, well, we talked about the viewing the weather. And now, one thing that happened to me earlier, when you first open this up, you see how it says, the picture I took, down at the bottom it says Pelican Bay, high 28, low 18. For some reason, on a lot of systems, the default goes to Celsius. So, if your calendar goes to Celsius, what you want to do is go to System Preferences, go to Regions, which is, oh, there we are, yeah, language of the region. If it says United States, pick another country, and then go back to Americas, and then go back to United States,
Reset.
and then close that, and then quit your calendar and open it back up, and then it will say Fahrenheit, if it doesn't, to begin with. When I first was doing the pictures for the presentation, I took the picture, and as you see there, it shows the Celsius temperatures at the bottom. So that's what you have to do. Quit the calendar, go into System Preferences, change the region to something else, change it back to the United States, and then open your calendar again, and then you'll be back on Celsius, or Fahrenheit. Another neat thing in the calendar is now you have what's called continuous scrolling. So before, do you remember you could just go from like month to month, you know? Now, if you start scrolling, see, I can see part of March there. I can get to 3 weeks in April, you know, so you kind of just scroll, or you could jump. So the option is if you use a scrolling function, you can then just kind of scroll and see, you know, months that overlap as you scroll through them. So that's new to Mavericks. Now, one thing that a lot of people notice when they first install Mavericks is when they open Safari, all of a sudden they see their top sites. Because the default function for your Safari homepage in Mavericks jumps over to top sites, which is typically the sites that you visit most often in chronological order of visiting. So you'll see your bank, you might see your Facebook, you might see, you know, different sites that you visit will show up there. So when the top sites become a default, well, first of all, a little bit about top sites is, when you go to top sites now, so if I open Safari, here are my top sites. So what you can do now, you can just randomly pick a top site and drag them around and reposition them. You used to have to click an edit button, and then you could rearrange them. So now when you're in the top sites window, you can drag them around, and maybe I want iCloud first, and then I want Facebook down here, and I want CNN, you know, the BBC up there. And then on the corner of each, when you hover over each one, you'll see a little X and a little pin. If you click the X, that means it's going to remove that from your top sites, that particular entry for Yahoo. And if I click the pin, it's going to mark here, it's going to keep all things digital there no matter what happens with these other ones. You know, that won't disappear. Whereas what happens is if you delete iCloud, at the bottom right, see another one fills in. So your top sites just keep kind of recirculating from all the places you've visited until you've run dry, which can be a long time. Yes?
Yeah, Jeff, I think that's happening to me on Mountain Lion right now.
Well, it could be the new version of Safari. It's probably the new version of Safari, which is available for other computers.
I have
So,
to reset my homepage every day, and it keeps going back to the top site.
yeah, what you have to do is, if this happens and you don't like it, you want to go to Safari Preferences, and in the first tab, which is General, New Windows, Open With, you can change that back to your home page. And usually I have mine on my home page. I switched it to top sites to demonstrate that feature, because top sites, I don't like top sites. Some people love it, and they like to see everywhere at once. I don't. I like to go to my home page. So, and you can also choose, by default, new tabs open. The section I'm on there will also be on top sites. So you need to change those both to either home page or a blank page, depending on what your preference is. And that is probably, even Safari 7 was introduced with Mavericks, but it was also made available to download for older versions of the OS. So that's why you would have been experiencing that.
Jeff, that pin that you just mentioned ago, If you click that, it will stay on your top site's window, is that it?
Correct. It won't keep the location, but it will stay in the top sites window.
It won't disappear
as the other ones do, unless you unpin it. Because top sites, I think, is based on kind of chronological and frequency of use. So if you have, Twitter pinned there, then no matter what happens to these other ones, Twitter will stay there. So that's what the pin does. The pin keeps it in top sites, whereas the X removes
Unpin
it.
something?
Pardon me?
Can you unpin?
Yeah, if you click the pin, it's a toggle. It's an on-off switch.
Toggle on.
So blue is pinned, gray is unpinned.
Can you switch from your home to top sites quickly?
Well, if you're in,
Or do you have to set it in preferences?
you can't. The only way to click, if you're on your home page. So if I go to, let me put my home page up here. Oh, there it is. So if say I'm on my home page, the quick way to get back to top sites is to click this little grid here that looks like a little. That will take you back to top sites, and then you could use the back button to get to your home page. So this is the top sites menu, the little grid there. So that will take you to your top sites immediately from any page. And then you could use the back menu to jump back. Now another thing we have now is this Safari sidebar. So if you click the bookmark menu here, do you see the little book there? That is a combined listing of your bookmarks and your reading list. So your reading list that you had before that was a separate little pair of glasses up here, in Safari 7 it will now be a sub-menu underneath the bookmarks menu. So that's called the Safari sidebar, and when you click that, that will reveal both all your bookmarks that would also be accessible from this menu, as well as your reading list. In your reading list, if you're not familiar with the reading list, if you add a page to your reading list, so if you say add to reading list on your iOS device or your Macintosh computer, the reading list it will save a version of that web page kind of in a little archive that you could read even if you were offline. So that's the nice thing about the reading list is it will save a page, and if you open this up on the airplane, for example, you don't have to be online to read the contents of that page. Now the linked pages, if it's a news story and then you click on a link in the sidebar, it won't open that page because you'll still be offline. But the reading list will allow you to save web pages that kind of in their complete status for later access. So again, when you, in Safari Preferences, you can change the new windows open with homepage if you don't like the top sites. Now, a new feature that was introduced in Mavericks and Safari 7 is called iCloud Keychain. So a lot of you may have heard of 1Password, which is an app that kind of helps you keep track of your password. I've been using that for years on my iOS devices and my different browsers on my computer. Well, now Apple's come out with iOS Keychain, which kind of does the same thing as what 1Password does. When you set it up, it will prompt you to authorize this on one of your devices, kind of to make sure you're you. It will then send a message to your iPhone or iPad where you'll have a little code that you'll then put on the computer so they know that you're actually the one that has all your devices together. So the iCloud Keychain lets you sync your stored passwords for Facebook, for example. If you store it on your computer, it will then be stored on your iPhone and iPad. So it's kind of like if you've used 1Password, it's very much similar to that, but it's handled by the iCloud now. So it's on all your devices that are syncing with iCloud.
Jeff, do you think it's as secure as 1Password? I never really felt that it was, but that's just a very personal, subjective feeling.
Yeah, and I think that the whole thing with the iCloud Keychain is it's as safe as your computer password. You know, I mean, you really have to lock your computer if you're going to use this. Simply because if you're the admin user on your computer and you've got kids in the house or people that are visiting, you know, this information is really open when you're in Safari. So if you're in Safari and you want to go to your bank, now there are some sites I've run into that it still won't save the iCloud Keychain, like certain financial sites. It just won't let you save it in the keychain even. There's a button you can click that says save it in secure sites, or where they won't allow me to save it, but it still doesn't work. Some of the sites will not let you store it, whereas 1Password can store anything. I've noticed that some of the sites that I've tried to access have given me an error, or Safari has given me a message that says Bank of America does not allow stored passwords. So you might run into that using this, whereas since 1Password is a third-party app that kind of does it a different way, saving the passwords, you might notice that you might run into some hitches there. So when you do visit a website, one of the things, the generating passwords, it will kind of prompt you right away with a password that is suggesting, and then remember it for you. So instead of saying, you have to come up with a new 13-digit password and write it down or record it somewhere, there will also be there's an automatic generating password field that comes up. So when you go to Amazon for the first time ever and it says enter a password, once you click your cursor in the password box to type something in, Safari and the iCloud keychain will suggest something for you that's 13 or 15 digits long, and you can adjust it there. I want a 17-digit password, but then it will also remember it. So I think they're still kind of working out some of the bugs. Storing credit cards. If you go into Safari, for example, and you go into Safari Preferences, there's now a feature for autofill. So if you go to autofill in Safari Preferences and you edit credit cards, you can then add credit cards and put in the credit card expiration date, just like you would if you were using a program like 1Password. You enter the information, the security code, you enter your card number, your expiration date, and then when you get to a page with a credit card on Amazon or something and you click in that field, it's going to bring up your options that you have stored in Safari.
Yeah, that just happened to me, and I didn't set anything. I don't think, and all I wanted to know was the special 3-digit number that you need to add the security.
The code. Now, had you not put in it?
I don't think so. I didn't.
But maybe you did.
I did.
Or maybe if this was turned on, it could have just stored it if you had used it prior. Because 1Password, if you're used to 1Password, it will prompt you. Do you want to save this credit card, or do you want to save this password? And you say yes.
I put that information in Quicken, but that's the only place I've done it. Would it pick it up?
It shouldn't pick it up from, due to the sandboxing that Apple has to keep apps separate, it shouldn't pick anything up from Quicken. Yeah, and you can check too, if this autofill was formed, it could recall a credit card if you used it.
I just did that 2 or 3 times recently.
And it autofilled or?
Autofill. Right.
Interesting. So that's something, I'll look it up because I haven't heard of that happening. But this is where you can edit things in autofill. All the content that could be automatically filled in for you is controlled through the autofill there. Yes?
2 things. With 1Password, if my user account is open and I haven't used it, even if my user account is open, nobody can get into my 1Password.
Right, because it's secured with the password.
Right. With iCloud Keychain, if my user account is open, is that accessible to anybody then who walks by?
Let me try here and see if it'll.
Okay.
I believe so. I mean, because I haven't seen anything that's prompted for another level of security.
Okay.
If you're in, you're in.
Well, if your user account is open,
Right.
yeah. All right, second thing is,
So if your user account is open, you're in.
yes, that's what I was trying to. Second thing is, if iCloud is, if I quit or have to change an iCloud account, have I lost all of those automatically generated passwords?
Well, I know that they're stored in your keychain. Keychain access on your Mac will store those generated passwords.
Well, almost anybody who knows anything about a computer can get into my keychain. If
Right.
they know anything about a Mac.
Right, and they need to know your administrator password, though.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know if, I think that, let's see, let's go to system preferences, look, because I don't know if, I believe since those aren't just kept in the cloud, I know for a fact that they go into the keychain.
Okay.
So the keychain is on a place on your hard drive.
Right.
So even if you deleted the iCloud account or had to do something
Well, that was-
drastic, you should still have a copy of those
Someplace.
in the keychain on one of the devices, on the Mac only. The iCloud or the iOS devices do not have a keychain
Gotcha.
app like that you can get to.
So Jeff, are you saying that the word keychain, that they're duplicates? In other words, what's on my Mac, if I choose to store it on the cloud, it's the same. It's not, it wouldn't be two sets of passwords.
No, I know that the iCloud, if you go to Amazon and you type in a new password and the iCloud keychain keeps it,
Yeah.
they also put a copy of that in Keychain Access.
So there's a local copy as well as
Yeah.
online.
Right, but on your devices, the only copies what's in they have access to in the cloud.
Gotcha.
Because those generated passwords are not kept on the device itself. It accesses them via the cloud. However, the hard copy, so to speak,
It's there.
It's on the Mac.
is in Keychain Access on your Mac.
Okay, thank you.
And it all depends on how, I have lots of people that don't use administrator passwords on their computers. And they just leave it blank, for software updates and such, they just leave it blank and hit OK. Now, if you're going to use something like this, that could become a serious risk. So that's why I'm well invested into 1Password. I'm happy with it. I'm sticking with that personally. But this is an option that's now available. But as you can see, it's got some gaps in it.
One other point, I don't think iCloud Keychain would work if you use other browsers. I think it only would be,
It would only work in Safari because it wouldn't work in Chrome.
it wouldn't work with.
My primary browser on my hardware is Chrome. So that works with 1Password. 1Password works with Firefox, it works with Safari, it works with Camino, whatever you have. Whereas iCloud isn't Apple specific, so it would only work with Safari.
The other thing that at least concerns me initially is if this stuff is in the cloud and you lose your iOS device, your mobile device, I have tested it this summer. It is unbelievably inaccurate finding my iOS devices. I was in Virginia all summer, and multiple times it still thought the devices were in Naples, and I can't figure out why.
When you use Find My iPhone?
Find my Mac, it could find my iPhone, it couldn't find my iPad, and it couldn't find my Mac.
And were they, was the iPad a 3G model or just a Wi-Fi?
Wi-Fi.
And that could be an issue like we were having here with trying to find our location on the map, depending on
Okay.
its access to a Wi-Fi network that might have some kind of restrictions on it. Find My Mac might not work
Well, I was
as
shocked.
far as location. You could probably do things to it. You could change the password or you could shut it down, I would think. But you might not be able to find it depending on
So,
the network.
Really the Find My Mac or Find My Device really only works when it's on a cellular network.
And the Find My Macs are never on cellular networks unless you have some kind of
Right,
plug-in
so my
card.
Find My Mac never worked and Find My iPad never worked, only the cell phone.
And I know that, Find My
That makes sense.
Mac is supposedly for laptops, but if your laptop is off or it's not on a network, it's not going to find it. It has to have a live
Oh, but I was
connection.
on a network. I mean, when David Pogue lost his on the train, he
Yeah.
talked about it and raved what a great capability it was. Well, it ain't.
Well, in the iPhone, it is a phone, it's got signals, it's got GPS in
Yeah, I
it, so
mean-
that's going to be a lot more accurate.
The
But these
phone-
devices don't have that, and there's a lot of variables that can affect the appearance of these on networks and the signals they're allowed to send out. So I would say, with the phone, it's a pretty good tool. I had a client left his phone in a taxi in New York and found it.
I agree, the phone is good.
But the computers don't have that GPS technology, and they're dependent on a Wi-Fi signal that can reveal the location.
And that's a good explanation, but the only reason why I bring it up is if you start using your iCloud keychain on lots of stuff, and you think, well, to find my device or find my Mac may help me if I lose it, it may not. And it's got all your personal.
Right, and anyone that really wanted to even you have to be very careful with stuff like this, because if someone found my laptop and they knew anything about terminal commands,
Yeah,
they could change the password,
that's right.
and then they could get into anything I had, so be very, I never use the same password as my computer that I use for 1Password or for Dropbox, don't have all your eggs in one basket, because the right person could do some damage even if you have a password on your computer.
Yeah, because Tidbits just did a recent article on how to use terminal to do all that.
Right, there's an easy way, because I've had clients that will forget their administrator password, and you can reset it. You used to need a disk, now you just need a terminal command. So use caution with leaving your information unprotected. Mitch?
I'm missing some point that was just made. Because I do find my devices right now, and I can see my iMac at home.
Because your iMac at home is probably on a network that has visibility. What we think is, in this instance, like here,
It's on a Wi-Fi network.
but like here though, I'm on a Wi-Fi network, but I couldn't pinpoint my location on a map. So there's something with the particular networks that is not giving location information or something. When I'm in my office or at my house and I click the little find me on my map, the little compass indicator, it will say, okay, here you are on Henry Street or Taylor Road. So something in this network is not letting me triangulate on my, so there must be some Wi-Fi settings that can affect visibility of devices. That's the only thing I can think of.
That makes sense.
Because it's happening here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's just different addressing.
So different networks can have different security levels, it could be a closed network, where, a closed network is just a very local network and it can get out, nothing can get in. It could be a lot of settings that could affect that.
I found my iPad, I picked it up with some other things, I had it hacked away. And so I used my laptop to find it, and I was able to find it because of that. Thank God.
And it was on though.
Yeah, it was all on.
Yeah, so I think it depends on the network. If it's some kind of closed network,
Just totally where I am.
I'm getting mine.
it's fine, you didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so his map found him, and that's a Wi-Fi only?
No, it also is a,
Cellular.
Cellular?
I don't have cellular turned on.
That's different.
Then that's,
But it's on a
yeah.
different network than you are, Jeff.
Oh, yeah, I'm on the so-called instructor network, so maybe that's where I'm getting to
Because
glitch.
that's,
So yeah, I think it's very specific about the particular Wi-Fi network you're on, as we've kind of discovered. So, but I think the big caveat about iCloud Keychain is be very careful. It's a nice feature, but it's only going to work with Safari. It's not going to work with Chrome or Firefox. And depending on who has access to your computer, it might not be that safe.
So suppose you give your computer, you get a new iPad and you're giving the old iPad to one of your grandchildren. You think you've wiped it clean, but apparently there might be ways.
Well, if you go into your iPad, in iOS devices anyway, if you go into settings in general, you go down to the very bottom, there's a place that says erase and reset the phone. If you do the reset, it puts it back to, square one, out of the box.
And even you couldn't tell.
I couldn't, maybe, I don't know if even the CIA, I don't know what kind of storage.
One caution, I think, is if you have registered that device with a computer so that you can find it, at least when I traded mine in at Target, they wanted to make sure that I had disengaged the connection between my iMac and the laptop. Even though I had done the software reset, my iMac still knew it, and that was going to affect whether or not they would accept it.
Yeah, one thing you have to do is, because it's a security feature in iOS 7, talking about the portable device again, that even if you do the wipe, to keep criminals from doing it, iOS 7, when you restart the phone, even when it looks like it's back to the factory, you have to put in the original owner's Apple ID and password in order to finally clear it out. Now, the way to stop that from happening is if you turn off Find My iPhone before you zap it, it clears out that information at that point, and then you do the erase, and then it's really erased. But if you have Find My iPhone turned on, when you erase the phone, that data is kept in there so that someone can't steal your phone, plug it into their computer, and reset it. They need your Apple ID password. So if you want to erase your phone to give it away or sell it or whatever, turn off Find My iPhone on your device, and then do the erase all settings and content, and then it will be cleared off. So that's a security feature, because only you can turn off your Find My iPhone with your Apple ID.
Right.
You need your password to turn that off. So that's a feature that will let you kind of safeguard that. Now on to notifications. You've noticed notifications on your iOS devices for a while. Notification. Oh, Don, you have a question?
One more question about keychain. I don't use Safari, and I don't use 1Password. But if I put a credit card in somewhere, let's say Amazon or whatever, but they already have mine stored. But let's say I went someplace to jeffbohr.com, put in my password for a one-time thing. Does that get stored in keychain?
That won't get stored in Keychain. but it would get stored. If Firefox, for example, said, do you want us to remember this, it would store it.
Right.
Google Chrome, Google Chrome is a convenience if you use Google Chrome because, you know, it syncs across all these devices, you know, you have Gmail, whatever, but also in Google Chrome, if you go to the bar where you would type in google.com and you type in settings, passwords, it will take you to a screen where you can then click a button that says show passwords. It'll show you every password for every website you've ever visited using Chrome with no security at all. So that's
Google.
you know, do you want access to all these websites and these features, or do you want privacy? And it's a very big trade-off because Google Chrome, for example, never use Google Chrome on a public computer because of that. But you know, it stores all that as a convenience, but it's also wide open. It's not locked. Anybody that knew how to do that, and it's not that difficult, can get in. You know, and there's a whole list of your passwords there. So.
Yeah, they also send it right to the NSA.
Yeah, you know, so don't tell them what's happening. So yeah, do you want privacy or do you want security, or it's hard to get both.
You know, Jeff, what you said about being able to change your user password by going in the terminal is rather disconcerting because it just sort of wipes out the secure feeling that one would have that when they close down, nobody can get in without the password, and there's nobody way to get at that. Do you know whether under Maverick there is any really fail-safe way of securing your laptop once you've signed out?
The only way would be File Vault, which is a program that basically will encrypt your whole hard drive. And if you create a File Vault password, you can never forget it, because if you forget it and you don't store the keychain with Apple and you don't forget, I've had, in my years of experience, I've had 2 people that lost everything on the computer because they lost their File Vault password. You know, and you can't get in. There's no way. It's that secure.
It's a door stopper.
Yeah. So it's a paperweight. So yeah, if you really want to make sure nobody can get into your computer, because what that does is creates a firmware password that you have to put in just to boot up. So it gets to the very beginning of the boot up process, and if you don't enter the password, you can't get past that to get into anything. You can't get into the terminal. So if you turn File Vault on, it will encrypt your entire hard drive to like a beyond NSA security level, I believe. I mean, it's encrypted. You have options now with File Vault 2 that you can, well, they tell you to write down your password and store in a safe place, which really isn't good advice for a password, but they say that because it's so important. And then another thing you can do now is store your keychain password to open File Vault with Apple. But then you have to set up another level of security questions, and you have to call them if you lose it. You can't do this over the web. You have to call them on the phone and talk to them, and they'll say, you know, what was your mother's maiden name and what was the first ice cream you ever had, whatever your questions are, and then they will help you unlock your computer. But it's very safe. It's very drastic. But if you're very concerned, File Vault 2 would be the way to go.
Jeff, I've done it, but on a day-to-day basis, it's no different. But you just use your regular password.
If you
It's
could,
only,
yeah.
you're only going to get to that other thing if you've lost your regular password. And then they have I would just say you take that, it's a long set of digits, and you stick it in a safe deposit box, because you're right. I mean, if you lose your regular password, you're up a creek.
Yeah, because the File Vault password is typically a big password that is complex. So yeah, if you lose that, but if that is the only way to make it truly impenetrable versus any terminal commands, because with File Vault, you don't even get to see the terminal until you enter the password. So on to notifications. Notifications, you've noticed on your portable devices for a while, you'll have little things that slide down from the top of the screen, like, your next appointment is at 2 o'clock, or the dentist is tomorrow, or it's mom's birthday. You'll notice now, those appear in the top right corner if you've installed Mavericks. So notifications will include mail messages by default. It will include text messages if you're signed up for iMessage. It might include Facebook or Twitter posts. It could include calendar events. In Notification Center, it will also include website notifications. So if you go into Safari Preferences and go to Notifications, there are things there where if you belong to Facebook or something, they could actually deliver notifications even if Safari's not open. So all these notifications can be controlled through different places. on your computer, but the default notification menu is up in the top right, and it's these to the right of Spotlight. There's little bars there, and these will show you notifications. So on this particular computer, I don't have everything turned on, but you see all I have here is my calendar, really. Now you'll notice too, just like on your phone in iOS 7, there's a Do Not Disturb feature. So if you turn on Do Not Disturb on your phone, it's not going to blink, it's not going to vibrate, it's not going to ring, it's off, except unless you've allowed calls from maybe your favorites or your favorite list or something. So while I'm doing this presentation, my Do Not Disturb automatically comes on with Mavericks. So that if you're doing a presentation for a lot of people, you know, little beeps aren't going to coming out and say, oh, so-and-so posted a picture of me on Facebook, and, you know, it's Mom's birthday tomorrow. So
How did you set that?
that's automatic when you go into mirroring on Mavericks. So when you connect to an external display in Mavericks, like I'm doing now, they do you the favor of disabling notifications so that I'm not interrupted, you know, by text messages or whatever. But if I did turn that off there, I could manually turn it off. So do not disturb. Another trick is, if you are trying to work and things keep bothering you up there, if you hold down the Option key and click on the notification menu, see how it goes from black to gray? So normally it's black when it's enabled. If you hold down the Option key, it disables notifications until the next day. So if things keep popping up for appointments and whatever, and you're just tired of it, you can hold down the Option key and click on the menu, and it will go, I think, till midnight. It probably resets at midnight. But at least you won't see any for the rest of the day until the next day. Now, to control notifications on the Mac, you go to your System Preferences. There's a Notifications menu in the top bar, and you'll see in the left column, much as you do in the iOS, all the different apps that are allowed to appear in Notification Center. So on mine, you'll see the calendar, FaceTime, Game Center, which I don't use, but I can click Game Center and uncheck all the notification options. So I subscribe to Adobe's Creative Cloud. A little notification pops up when there's an update to Photoshop, you know, which is convenient because Photoshop doesn't come through the Apple App Store. It comes through its own little Adobe Program Manager. So that's nice that that shows up there, because then I know when I need to download a new version of Photoshop. And you'll notice too, the Do Not Disturb, under the Do Not Disturb center in notification, by default, there's a box checked here that says when mirroring to TVs and projectors. So that's why when I connect to this monitor, the default is checked when I'm mirroring. You could uncheck that and see notifications. Now, another thing you can do in notification, if you turn on the share buttons in Notification Center, we talked about the share button a little earlier, where you can click the share button and send something by email. We sent the maps. You can send it to Facebook or Twitter. So if you go into Notification Center, let me turn the Do Not Disturb off. Let me go back to Notifications. Find the sharing part. So that takes me to my calendar. Took a picture of this earlier, now I can't find it. So there's typically, if you'll see here, there's icons for Messages, Twitter, and Facebook, where it allows you directly through Notification Center to post to those services. And now I'm trying to find out, here we are, Messages. It's because I don't have my Facebook account on here, so that's why it didn't show up. Let me put it in real quick.
Do you need your Facebook
if you want Facebook and messages and Twitter to appear in the notification center as seen here outlined in red. So you have a little messages, a little Twitter. If you click on that, while you're in the notification center submenu, you can post to Facebook or Twitter or send a message without even opening any of the apps. So you don't have to be in Safari, you don't have to be in, but you do have to have those apps signed in. You have to sign into your Twitter and your LinkedIn account in system preferences in order to see those menus appear. So typically, if you're a big fan of social media, that might be handy if you want to tweet something without having to log on to your computer, go to twitter.com, sign in, and tweet. So you can tweet directly from there. If you do tap the message, this is what it will look like on the right, where you'll type in the recipient's name and you just send the message right from the notification center. So if you do use those social media outlets and iMessages, you can easily use Notification Center to access those particular accounts if you're signed into them at the time. Now, a few things in the Finder. In the Mavericks Finder, so if we go to the Finder, you can now do tabs, just like you could in Safari. So if you go to File, New Tab, you can have two Finder windows open. You can have your Applications window open in one and all your files or your documents in another. And then once you have two tabs, you'll see a plus sign over here on the right. You can have more tabs. So you can have multiple Finder windows, just like you can have in web browsers. Another thing that's new with the Mavericks Finder is full screen mode. So if you click the little arrows at the top right of the screen, you'll then go into a full screen Finder mode. So you don't see your menu bar or your dock. And that might be handy if you're trying to organize pictures or some files and you just want to concentrate on what's in the window rather than what might be in the, on the background and stuff.
Where did you turn it on first place?
Well, by default, Finder tabs are turned on all the time. And now you have the full screen option by clicking the arrows in the top right corner. And you get out of that if you can either hit escape on the keyboard, so the escape key, or if you move your cursor to the top of the screen, you'll reveal that little blue box there, and that exits full screen mode too. You'll notice a lot of times in Safari now, it'll jump to full screen mode by default sometimes, and you're like, how did that happen, or I didn't do that? Either hit escape or go to the top of the screen to reveal that little blue box, and then that'll get you out of full screen mode. It will also happen in Mail. I haven't found a setting that you can turn off enter full screen mode. Another thing you can do, and then I put it here in big letters, do at your own risk. You can re-enable seeing the library folder in Finder windows. So by default, they started hiding that a couple of OSs ago because that's where your preference files are kept. That's where if you deleted a file that was in the library folder inadvertently, you could lose a font or you could lose templates that you've done. It could cause a lot of damage. So I would say only do this unless you know what you're doing, because but that's an option you have now. And then tags. If everyone's familiar with,
So how do you do it?
you go to your home folder. So you go to a Finder window. You go to Finder Preferences. You go to Advanced. Wait. Let me go back to that. Finder View Options. So you go to Finder. You go into Show View Options. And then you can check. Let's try this again. I'm in all my files. Let me go to my computer. Home folder. Show View Options. Show Library folder down at the bottom. So down here, there's a checkbox when you're in your home folder and you go to View Options. And then my library folder is going to be visible in the Finder. And that's where all your calendars are kept, your emails, messages, your accounts, your printers, etc. So if you don't know what's in these folders, never try to delete anything to clean it up because it can really wreck things on the computer. So that's why I said do that at your own risk if you decide to enable that. In tag meetings, tags, for quite a while now, you've been able to do what they call labels on the Mac. So you could click a file and you could go to the file menu and put a color on it. They've called these labels tags now. So it's just like color coding your files. You might have all your cooking files blue and all your photos are green or so and so on. You can add tags through the Finder now, which are really the labels, and then you can choose to show those tags in the sidebar if you like. I've told it not to show tags in the sidebar. So I've unchecked, show these tags in the sidebar, but do you see if I start checking them, do you see how in the bottom left, the tags are starting to show up? So a tag in a Finder item can have multiple tags or labels, so it could be green and blue. And if you have those enabled and you go down here and you click on the red tag, it's going to show you all the files you've labeled red, or all the files you've labeled orange. So depending on that, you organize your files. That may be of help. I don't personally use tags or labels.
Is it possible to automatically tag all your photos at once?
Let's see. If you go in, I don't know if you tag a folder if it tags the contents. Let's see.
Carl, the answer is yes. If you have a tag in the sidebar, just take all your photos and drag them on top of that tag and they will become tagged.
That's not what I want to do though. I want it to go through my hard drives and pick all my photos and tag them, so then I can make a backup of all of the photos without having to find them all by myself.
He has them all over his computer.
The only thing you might do is do a search for like JPEG or something in the Finders, and then select all and then tag them all. But then that's not going to get your PNG files or your TIFFs, so that, I don't know how, because when you tag a folder, it doesn't tag the contents of the folder, it just tags the folder.
Yeah.
So that's another way to organize files, is through tags, which used to be called labels.
Bob, does that answer your question?
Not quite, but I'll follow up. It's like keywording.
Right.
If you can create a large number of tags, and that's what I want to do.
And you can rename the tags. Like instead of orange, you could call that, important. But they're basically, so there was already there's an important down here. So, you can relabel these.
How do you create an additional one? I want to add one to this. How do you create?
Let's see.
You don't do it there.
Yeah, what color is important?
You don't do it there.
You don't need color, that's the point.
Oh.
You start, when you do a save, anytime you do a save in Mavericks, one of the things that shows up is tags.
Right, now I'll do that here. Let me do the duplicate.
And a new one. Okay, got it.
You do save, there's tags, okay? And
You can customize a tag here.
You can create a brand new tag there.
Okay, that answers my question.
Well, work is already a tag, but so create new tag pets.
Yeah.
So that's how you would do it when you were creating a new document, and then that.
Where do you pick the colors?
You don't.
Okay.
You only your favorites. You only.
Yeah, it looks like it's just
favorites.
white, unless if I save that and then I go back to tags.
Here's pets.
Yeah, so there's pets, and let's see if I can go into Finder preferences and go to tags,
You can assign
and then I could assign a color. But you don't get to customize the color. It doesn't look like, but I could make it yellow, for example.
Okay.
So do that while you're saving a new file. It'll let you create a new tag at that point. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, one of the things they sort of took away is it used to be with the tags, they would color the whole line, and now you just get the dot.
Yeah, they changed the
There's
appearance.
no way to change that appearance, is there?
Not yet.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And you get little dots, and if you have a blue and a green tag, then one is kind of on top of the other, and they kind of overlap. So let's go back to the last slide here, and that's system preferences. So one of the things, has anyone ever used a program called Text Expander?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Text Expander, they built that into the Mac OS now. So basically, if you have little shortcuts, like you might have a shortcut that says JJB, and that turns into sincerely, comma, Jeff Bohr, wherever I type JJB, whether it be in Pages, Microsoft Word, a text message, that it substitutes text for that. Under System Preferences, the keyboard now, you'll have a section for substitutions. So let me escape out of that. So if you go into text, you've got places like address 1 and address 2. Maybe if you have a post office box and a home box, if you have things that you're continuously typing over and over, you can create, in the left column, a little string of characters, and then in the right column, what do you want to replace it with when those characters appear? So what I found out too was, if you ever set up shortcuts on your iOS device, like I set up shortcuts on my iOS device for text messages, they sync with your computer because, hi Bam, that's my wife, I love you. That came over from my phone. I never put it in here. But the shortcuts that were on my phone also appear on my computer now. So this is something that's very similar to what Text Expander did. And if you did use Text Expander, you'll get a message when you install Mavericks that says you must enable Text Expander. And what you actually have to do is go into Accessibility, and you have to go into Keyboard, and you have to, let's see, where is it? I'll have to put this in the note because there's a place somewhere in Accessibility where you have to go and enable Text Expander manually now. So if you were using that, you'll be prompted. And when you install Mavericks, a little box will come up that says, if you use Text Expander, it's been disabled, go here and click, and I can't remember where it is, but it's, I think it's under Switch Control.
At least you can't remember something.
Yeah, I actually can't remember. And I use Text Expander, I just haven't put it on this side of this computer yet. So
Jeff, you had it under text. Now, how's that different from shortcuts? Because it used to be in shortcuts.
on your iOS device, they call it shortcuts.
Okay.
On your Mac, using Mavericks, they call it, it's under the text
Okay.
section for the keyboard.
So it will sync automatically with your iOS?
If you have iOS shortcuts that, talk to you later or on my way or something, they'll appear in your Mac shortcuts. So you'll be able to use those same shortcuts in an email, for example, that you would use on your iOS device. If you create one on your computer, I'm sure it would. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't sync.
You use it for signature line, is that sort of?
Yes. Yeah, you could use, but just...
But not your signature, not a, could you do that?
No, you can't put an image in.
No.
You could do that in Mail,
Yeah.
the Mail app, put an image in with your signature, but not in a shortcut. Now, it will allow you to put those little emoticons, the little smiley faces and stuff. And does everyone know how to access those? You can access those through Mavericks now. So it used to be, you couldn't. You could send emoticons on your... Now, I've forgotten how to do that. I thought it was Command twice. Does anyone remember that one, how to enable the emoticons in...
The App Store.
Well, there's a way, now it's natively in Mavericks, and I thought that it was hit the Command key
It's not
twice.
in the character viewer, or the old character viewer for emoticons?
Under accessibility, was it?
Let's go into the a Finder window and
Keyboards.
see.
Is that a keyboard?
Yeah, I thought it was a keyboard.
The system preference is a keyboard.
So that's one way to do it. There is a keystroke shortcut that I can't remember, and I'll find out and I'll put it up on the group. But there's a way you can just access this menu from anywhere where you're entering text, whether it be Facebook or email, and bring up this menu without having to hit Character Viewer. But in the meantime, you can click Character Viewer. But I'll find out what that keyboard
Shortcut,
shortcut is.
shortcuts there?
Pardon me?
Shortcuts over to the left. No?
Yeah, I know there's a keyboard command, I just can't think. But if you put the keyboard menu up there, the character viewer, you'll be able to jump into there and, insert the same ones that are pretty much on the iPhone, I believe. So there's several hundred there. And then one other thing that they've changed a little bit is the Bluetooth interface. So if you have Bluetooth devices and you go to System Preferences and click on the Bluetooth menu, you'll actually see a kind of a different look here to the Bluetooth devices. It'll show you any devices that you've ever connected to the computer, as well as you can easily add devices there if they're available. And another icon that you'll have now under accessibility, I believe, is captions. So many apps now have captions as part of the options. Like if you have the Netflix, if you watch DVDs with DVD player, certain YouTube videos will have captions available. This is where you can change the default look of how captions will appear across different apps like Netflix and like the iDVD player and such. So that's an option that wasn't there before that will let you.
So that's accessibility.
It's in accessibility under captions. And if you check prefer closed captions, then whenever captions are available, they'll be shown by default if you check the box at the bottom that says prefer. But at the top you'll see you can change the way it looks, and you can even add a custom font and text and size and such if you click the plus sign here. So that is kind of the introduction to Mavericks. Were there any questions of anything I didn't cover? About any of the features I discussed or that I didn't discuss?
Does Maverick affect your iPhoto?
Well, there's a new version of iPhoto that was introduced with Mavericks, but it also is backward compatible with Lion and Mountain Lion. And maybe Snow, I don't think Snow Leopard, but I think as far back as Lion and Mountain Lion. But the interesting thing about Mavericks was, unlike some previous updates from Apple, they kept the exact same specifications that were in effect for Mountain Lion. So if you had iMacs that were 2007 or later, they didn't. A lot of times when they come out with a new operating system, they'll say, okay, 2007 iMacs are now obsolete. You cannot put Mavericks on them. But they kept the same hardware specifications as were in place for Mountain Lion. So if you have a computer that is Mountain Lion compatible, Mavericks requires the same hardware and the same memory requirements that Mountain Lion had. So if you were concerned about, I don't know if my computer can handle Mavericks, if it can handle Mountain Lion, Mavericks was made to be totally compatible with both hardware and memory requirements. So that was a little unusual because prior, each version of system software, when the OS came out, some machines kind of fell off the ledge of being compatible. So in this one, they at least kept it for this version of 10.9. So
what bugs did you find when you switched, upgraded, what got kind of confused in your...
I personally didn't have anything that really happened that disabled anything. I do find myself holding the option key and clicking on the notification menu to turn it off for another day because the notifications, and if you spend some time, as you saw in the system preferences, you can really customize what's appearing there. I haven't taken the time. I'll just shut the whole thing off until the next day, typically. But other than that, there's nothing. I haven't had any compatibility issues with any software. I use Quicken Essentials for the Mac for checking, and finances. I use the Photoshop suite, and I haven't run into anything. It was made to be compatible with anything that could run on Mountain Lion without any hiccups. Yes.
I run Gmail in my mail program, and I had to switch over because I know they were trying to work on a fix for it. You know, if the new patch fix the problem?
They did release a patch, and I personally don't use Gmail as a primary email provider, but the people that have Gmail accounts, there were some issues. And it was mostly because of the way Gmail was perceived as handling mail really wasn't a true IMAP functionality. And until Mavericks exposed this, it was kind of a big internet news because Gmail wasn't what everyone thought it was, kind of. And their folder structure and the things that are kept in certain places weren't the way that everyone expected it to be. So if you use Gmail as your primary account, I know Joe Kissel, who writes some of the Take Control books, and he has a really extensive article, if you search, talking about his experience. And personally, I think what he did was he just finally said goodbye to Gmail and picked another provider because he couldn't stand the inconsistencies. So that if you have Gmail, maybe do a little research before you. But they did release a patch that I think helped some people. But I've got a client that uses Gmail and he's still having some issues. So if you use Gmail as your primary mail service, you might want to do a little research before upgrading.
What I use on Gmail works fine now, but I think Jerry has had issues.
I haven't had troubles with Gmail, but I've had troubles with mail that will be in Friday's Naples Daily News.
Yeah, because I didn't have any personal problems, but that's good to know.
I bumped into one. I did some screenshots, and then I wanted to throw them into the trash, and I had to authenticate. Now, I got a little notification, you have to authenticate, click authenticate. You need permission,
Really?
click authenticate. And there was nothing, nowhere to find anything that was authenticated. And it's still there, because I couldn't throw it up.
That's a new one. Let me try to.
I've not had that.
Was there someone else? Were there multiple users signed in? I mean, I would think maybe if there was an admin and a standard user, then you might. I just did a screenshot and deleted it with no problem. So I don't know what.
I know. I did others that I deleted.
Did you restart and it still hadn't?
Yeah.
And that's a hiccup that I haven't seen.
But what bugs me is that there was a instruction to click authenticate, and there was nowhere to find it.
And it was just a regular screenshot.
Right? From the screen, what I tried to do, I wouldn't let me do it, and said, gave me a window that said authenticate.
But there was no
But
menu.
I tried right click everywhere, all the commands, anything I could think of where I could find authenticate, and I couldn't.
That's. I haven't seen that. Yeah.
I will send you the screenshot.
Yeah. Send me a link and see. I'll see what I can do. Yeah. Any other questions or? Yes.
A little bit slow and backwards on updates, but if I'm running Mountain Lion, will I get an automatic notification to upgrade, or?
Well, when you open the App Store, the first thing that you'll see is free upgrade to Mavericks. And that's another unique thing about Mavericks was that, it used to be $120 several years ago for OS 9, and then OS 10, the few versions were $120, then they dropped it to $20 or $19 for, Mavericks, or Mountain Lion and Lion, and then Mavericks is free, iWork is free now, so they're really concentrating on the hardware, and they're giving you the tools, and now iWork is on the web for free, so there's no reason that it used to be, you'd have to send the document to someone in Word from Pages. Now that iWork is on the web, you can create the document in the cloud, so to speak, and anybody can access it with a web browser on any computer and collaborate on files in Word or in Keynote, Pages, or Numbers. So that iWork on the web that's now available is kind of breaking down some barriers, although it's not as full featured yet, but I think they're working on that. So, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.